Good morning. I would like to welcome everyone to today's hearings. The Committee of Adjustment is appointed by Council to consider applications for consents and minor variances to the zoning bylaw. Please be advised that any applicant or agent that is in attendance in person at today's hearing for a specific application may leave the hearing once their application has been considered by the committee. Any applicant, agent, or member of the public wishing to address the committee for a specific application is reminded that presentations are limited to 10 minutes per person. Could I please have a motion to adopt today's agenda? Moved by Watson and Strength. And would the Secretary Treasurer please read the resolution to adopt the agenda?
Moved by Member Watson, seconded by Member Strength. Be it resolved that the agenda of the Gravenhurst Committee of Adjustment meeting dated July 18th, 2025 be adopted.
Thank you. Do any committee members have any comments with regard to the minutes?
Vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. We need to vote. Thank you. It does say that here. And that the motion to adopt the agenda is passed. So, moving on. Do any committee members have any comments with regard to the minutes to be adopted today for May 16th, 2025? Could I please have a motion to adopt the minutes? Sims and Ungerman. And would the Secretary Treasurer please read the resolution to adopt the minutes for May 16th, 2025?
Moved by Member Sims, seconded by Member Ungerman. Be it resolved that the minutes of the Gravenhurst Committee of Adjustment meeting dated May 16th, 2025 be adopted.
And we'll call for the vote on that. And that carries. Thank you. Do any committee members have any comments with regard to the minutes to be adopted today for June 20th, 2025? Seeing none, could I have a motion to adopt the minutes for June 20th? Strength and Watson. And would the Secretary Treasurer please read the resolution to adopt the minutes for June 20th, 2025?
Moved by Member Strength, seconded by Member Watson. Be it resolved that the minutes of the Gravenhurst Committee of Adjustment meeting dated June 20th, 2025 be adopted.
And again, we'll call for the vote on that, please. And that carries. Thank you. Do any committee members have a pecuniary interest in any of the applications being heard today? Seeing none. In accordance with Section 11 of the Committee of Adjustment Procedural Bylaw, I'll ask the Secretary Treasurer if he has received any requests for adjournment, deferral, or withdrawal from the applicant or agent for any application on today's agenda.
Mr. Chair, staff have received no requests.
Thank you. The Committee of Adjustment will today consider one consent application under unfinished business and 4 new minor variance applications under the public hearings today. The Planning Act requires that a public hearing be held before the Committee of Adjustment decides whether or not to approve a consent or a minor variance. The public hearing serves 2 purposes. First, to present to the Committee of Adjustment and the public the details and background to the application, and second, to receive comments from the public and agencies before a decision is made. I will briefly summarize the procedure to be used for the hearing. The Secretary Treasurer, Adam Ager, will advise as to when, how, and to whom notice of the public hearing was circulated. The planners, Angela Jakatis or Andrew Clark, will provide any other information that is relevant to the application and summarize any correspondence on file. From there, the applicant will be provided the opportunity to make a presentation, followed by questions or presentations from the public, either in favor of or against a proposal. Committee members will then have the opportunity to question the applicant, the Secretary Treasurer, the planners, or anyone giving presentations. The proposed consent or variance will then be considered by the committee. If anyone from the public would like to receive a copy of the decision made on any application, please provide your name and full mailing address on one of the forms provided on the table at the back of the room. Would the Secretary Treasurer please advise how, when, and to whom notices of the public hearings were circulated?
Notice of the public hearings concerning the proposed applications were sent by first-class mail to the respective owners and assessed persons within 60 meters of the properties subject to the proposed consent or minor variance application, and emailed to applicable agencies. Included with each notice was a summary of the application, a site sketch, and a key map showing the location of the property. The circulations were provided in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter P13.
Thank you. It is important to note that should committee approve any application, there is a 20-day appeal period during which time today's decision may be appealed. During this appeal period, no building permit may be issued or other work commenced. Also, in the event there is an appeal, and in order to be kept advised of a possible Ontario Land Tribunal hearing, members of the public must request to be sent a copy of committee's decision on the application. Third-party appeals are no longer accepted. Only the applicant, the municipality, and certain public bodies will be able to appeal a minor variance or consent decision. We'll now deal with the application for consent under unfinished business. I now declare this to be a reconsideration of consent application B04-2023-GR amended for Andrew Ferguson, which was originally held by the committee, or heard by the committee at the July 21st, 2023 and July 19th, 2024 Committee of Adjustment meetings. It should be noted that this is not a public hearing and there's no circulation requirement under the Planning Act. I will now ask our senior planner, Angela Jacatis, to please provide any additional information that may be relevant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a type of request that has not yet been dealt with by this committee. It is to change a condition on an approved but not yet completed severance application. So I will go through a brief PowerPoint just to give committee the background information and context. Sorry, so the property is located in the southwest area of the municipality at the intersection of Kilworthy Road and Southwood Road. Conditional severance approval has been granted to result in the following proposed lot configuration, being the 3 lots shown in red. All of the conditions have been fulfilled for the 2 lots outlined in red on the right. In fact, the easternmost lot is currently being built on. So the property that is being dealt with today is the most western lot, and there is a water course that runs through it, shown here. The decision granted by the Committee of Adjustment was to require any new entrance and related site alteration to be a minimum of 30 meters from that water course, consistent with the requirement for structures. The applicant has requested that the condition be amended to permit a minimum 15-meter setback from the water course. Committee is therefore being asked to change a condition, and that is permitted. That's committee's ability to do so under the Planning Act. And as noted, there is no related public hearing or notice requirement to do that. So just for a bit more additional context, this is the existing culvert draining from Kilworthy Road. And you can hopefully see here the water course that runs through the field to the southwest towards Southwood Road. And the town's infrastructure department has requested a drainage easement across that, and a related condition was included in the approval granted by committee. That won't change. This photo is looking east along Kilworthy Road across the frontage of the properties. The culvert would be, it's approximately here, I believe. So again, you can see there are no real constraints to development. The frontage is uniform, the property's uniform, but the applicant wants to separate the entrances and has therefore requested the imposed 30-meter setback be reduced. Schedule B of the town's official plan indicates this is not a cold water stream. So the official plan requires a 15-meter setback, which planning staff and infrastructure staff are satisfied that that is appropriate. And just keep in mind that a 30-meter setback is still required for any structures. That's not changing. So in conclusion, staff would therefore recommend that committee change the related conditions from a 30-meter setback to a 15-meter setback from the watercourse for the driveway only, as noted on this slide. And this last slide incorporates those changes and confirms all of the conditions that are required to be fulfilled before the lot creation can be finalized. And that concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee, are there any questions or comments to the applicant, the Secretary Treasurer, the Senior Planner on this matter? I have a question. Just the reason for moving it, you said, is to separate the driveways more. Is that what I heard? There's no other constraint on this, is there?
There is no other constraint, and the applicant was concerned that the 30-meter setback would push the driveway too close to the adjacent lot line, so had requested that the reduced setback for some additional separation.
Okay, nothing further from the committee? Okay, and the staff recommendation is to approve this? Sorry. Yes, the staff recommendation to approve, and could I have a motion to that effect? Watson and Ungerman. I'll now ask Adam Ayer to please read the resolution.
Moved by Member Watson, seconded by Member Ungerman. Be it resolved that having regard to the matters prescribed under Section 5312 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter P13, that consent for application number B04-2023 GR amended, Andrew Ferguson, be amended for the following conditions. 4. The subject lands be brought into conformity with the zoning bylaw by A, requiring the entrance to B04-2023 GR amended to be located a minimum of 15 meters away from the culvert and identified watercourse. And 7, the applicant enter into a 5126 agreement with the town of Gravenhurst requiring that any entrance to severed lot B04-2023 GR amended and any site alteration be located a minimum of 15 meters from the culvert and drainage course. The reason being, the applicant has requested that the entrance be permitted to be closer to the culvert and drainage course and has therefore requested that condition 4D be changed. He has marked the proposed entrance location on site and advised that it would be approximately 16 meters from the culvert.
No questions or comments? I will call for the vote on that. And that carries. Thank you very much. I now declare this matter to be concluded. I now declare this to be a public hearing for minor variance application A10-2025 GR for Roth. I will now ask our student planner, Matthew Britton White, to please provide any additional information that may be relevant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject property, municipally known as 1014 Damon Road, is in the northwest area of the town of Gravenhurst. The property is within the waterfront area designation in the official plan, zone residential waterfront. The property is currently accessed from a portion of Damon Road, which is privately maintained. Existing structures on the property include 2 non-complying sheds, a dwelling that is currently being renovated with a building permit, and a dock that is under construction, also with a permit. There is a watercourse running through the middle of the property from west to east. The property is well vegetated along the side lot lines, the south side of the watercourse, and around the shoreline. It's generally level in elevation. The surrounding lands generally consist of single detached dwellings in the waterfront area in a variety of sizes. The dwelling on the subject property is single-story and relatively modest in footprint. Neighboring properties on the road have a greater level of site alteration and open areas. An application has been submitted to permit a proposed new deck to result in 172.7 square meters of shoreline development, where 138 square meters is permitted, representing a variance of 34.7 meters. Permit the proposed new deck to be set back a minimum of 11.5 meters from a watercourse, where 30 meters is required, representing a variance of 18.5 meters. Recognize the location of a non-habitable place structure at a setback of 23.8 meters from the water, where 30 meters is required, representing a variance of 6.2 meters. Recognize the side yard setback of a non-habitable place structure at 3.1 meters from the northern side lot line, where 6 meters is required, representing a variance of 2.9 meters. And recognizing the side yard setback of a shed at 1.7 meters from the northern lot line, where 6 meters is required, representing a variance of 4.3 meters. And you can see the proposed deck highlighted in pink on the site plan, just there, and the existing sheds here as well. To provide some background, a previously existing attached deck was removed from the dwelling to allow for a dock permit to be issued, and now a smaller deck is proposed to be built, which would also count towards shoreline development area, in addition to the dock that's currently under construction. So this results in the proposal going over their permitted shoreline development area. I'll also note that the boathouse shown in dark gray on the site plan on top of the dock is proposed, and a permit hasn't been issued yet for it, and that would be just here on top of the dock. And the existing non-habitable sheds do not comply with setback requirements, so the applicants are requesting for them to be recognized as well. Comments of no objection were received from the Deputy Treasurer, Deputy Fire Chief, and Infrastructure. A letter of opposition was received from the neighboring property owner at 1016 Damon Road with concerns about property values, illegal construction, septic location, watercourse setbacks, flood zones, and building permit requirements. This letter was provided to committee, the applicants, and their agent in its entirety. This first picture looks from Damon Road down the driveway of the subject property. You can see the line of vegetation on the left side there, which marks the side lot line and one of the non-compliant sheds down the driveway in the middle, as well as the neighboring property, which sent the comment of opposition on the left side there. Moving further east down the driveway and the side lot line, you can see two non-compliant sheds on the property with trees located just behind them, approximately where the side lot line is. Looking north at another angle towards the side lot line, this shows the vegetation present behind the sheds and a view of the neighbor's garage from the side lot line. I'd also note that the hydro line, as well as the septic bed, watercourse, dwelling, and driveway all limit where these sheds could be built or moved, as shown on the photo. Moving closer to the shoreline, still looking north, this is the location of the proposed deck. The deck is proposed to be made out of wood and stretch from the front of the photo to the windows of the dwelling in the back. And this is another angle looking south at the proposed deck location, giving another reference to the deck's proposed size. And here's a wider view of the front of the dwelling. Looking from the shoreline, you can see the vegetation in front of the dwelling, along with where the deck is proposed on the left side there. And here's a picture that looks east towards the water, standing where the proposed deck is and where it would be built, again showing the existing shoreline vegetation. Looking south from the dwelling, you can see the creek that runs through the property and the neighboring property to the south, buffered by some trees. And finally, this photo looks north towards the shoreline of the neighboring property. As outlined in the staff report, staff are recommending deferral to permit the applicant an opportunity to reduce the size of the proposed shoreline development to be closer to zoning bylaw compliance. And that concludes the presentation.
Thank you. Do the applicant or agent have a presentation they wish to make? Please come forward to the podium, and we'll need your name and mailing address. Thank you. You can press your button on there to make your comments.
Everything's good? Okay. Good morning. My name is Tracy Owen. I am the agent for the Roth family from the Drawing Board Architectural Design. My mailing address is P.O. Box 248, Port Carling, Ontario, P0B1J0. I'd like to start off with a little introduction to the Roth family and a background on the property. Ian, Christy, and Bradley are co-owners of the property, and they are in attendance with me today as well. They purchased the property in 2022 during COVID, and with the intent of the property being an eventual residence for Bradley. Of course, an older Muskoka property has its challenges. Originally, the intent was to do some cosmetic facelift, windows, doors, improve the roof, things that had been not kept up over the years. Of course, as they got into the project, they found a little bit more work to be done, a little bit more structural defects. So with the assistance of the town of Gravenhurst, they have obtained the permits required to improve the cottage, make the renovations, and are in the process of improving the overall property. So of course, they have a significant investment into the property. As previously mentioned, there was an older deck that was attached. A little bit of confusion in the process, so the deck was removed to allow for the dock. Of course, with the intent that they could replace it after this process of another deck. So to summarize, this is basically about the deck. We are looking to square off the front corner of the deck. If you recall from the photos, there is an area that is clear. The shoreline area is of concern. We are requesting additional square footage for the deck, which would be around 374 square feet or 34.7 square meters. With the shoreline area, the buffer area is still in compliance. So with the deck, we are about, the requirement is the 75% shoreline area to remain natural. We're at about 80% with this deck. So that is still in compliance. My understanding is that this could be done out of a stone landscaping patio without the minor variance process. So we are hoping that the deck is a bit more preferable to construct. It would allow for rainwater to penetrate through the deck and be absorbed into the groundwater. An impermeable surface in this area close to the water isn't desirable, but is permitted. So we're hoping that committee accepts that the deck is a preferred choice. We understand the request to perhaps look at to being closer in compliance. We're happy to entertain that if committee feels it's an important thing for you as well. As far as the sheds in the back, they were inherited with the purchase. As I believe one was permitted, but we can't seem to determine which one might be actually legal, so we're requesting them to both be grandfathered and acknowledged, so that should the clients need to repair or replace down the future, of course, they can do so by right. We've got, let's see, we're hoping the deck is very low-lying, has very minimal impact onto the shoreline, very appreciable. That's not a built form that is more than a couple of feet. We're trying to keep it low without having any waterfront impact. So without getting into too much detail with the neighbors' concerns, and we do appreciate their concerns, we are trying to responsibly develop this property, and of course we're happy to answer any questions that they did have. I won't go into detail since Angela has responded to those. But of course, if there are questions, we are happy to answer them. The Roths are here with me today, and we do hope committee finds this appropriate. Should there be a reduction that you do feel, we'd be happy to discuss that today, if possible. If you do prefer to defer and come back with a smaller footprint, we can, of course, do that as well. But if there's a way to resolve it today, we'd be very happy to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. And if we have questions, we'll call you back. Thank you. At this time, I'll ask for comments from the community member, Leanne Ostrins, who has pre-registered to address the committee electronically. Welcome. We'll need you to turn on your microphone and video and press the talk icon.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I am one of the owners. My name is actually spelled incorrectly, if that needs to be corrected for the record. But I'm one of the owners of the neighboring property, and I believe my husband is in attendance in person in the room as well. I just unfortunately had to be away for work today. Our concerns have been laid out in the document that we sent to the committee. The, the outbuildings are of concern to us for sure because of the proximity to the property line. We already have a dwelling that has been grandfathered, and understandably so, that extends over our property line. And we're not entirely sure as to why the outbuildings, once they have reached their lifespan, why they should remain in that location and not be moved more in compliance with the property line. We haven't yet received a response from Angela, so I can't speak to what the response was to some of the other concerns.
Okay, is that the end of your comments, Leanne? We can have Mr. Caddis address those and. Okay, we'll finish with Leanne and then we can call you forward. Okay. Is there anything further, Leanne? At this
No,
point?
thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on. Thanks for your comments and please feel free to come forward. Yeah, press the button and then I'll bring you in as well. Okay.
Okay.
And
Kerry
proceed with your
Osmonds.
comments.
So we just have some concerns, and my understanding is that our responses have been addressed directly to the Ross, but not to us. So we're at a bit of disadvantage as to what we're talking about here. So I don't think this is a good forum to make a decision because we haven't seen the comments back from the planning department.
I think we'll get Mr. Caddis to speak to that in a moment. Let's see if there's are there any further comments from members of the public? And seeing none, so Mr. Caddis, could you just address those issues?
Thank you. There was a response sent yesterday that I had believed was sent to everybody, including the members of Committee of Adjustment. I apologize that it didn't, because obviously it was intended solely for Mr. and Mrs. Ostrins and was just being copied to everybody else for their benefit. I believe it has just been sent now. I can go through it quickly if that would, or generally, if that would be of assistance. So I'll just summarize. Reviewing assessment records, the dwelling was constructed approximately 1960, which predates any zoning bylaw requirements. It also predates any Ontario building code. So there was no violation of zoning or building code requirements at the time it was built. Building permit issued for repairs and renovations to the existing dwelling in 2023 included a note stating this corner of the roof overhang encroaches over the property line. These plans do not outline any changes to the roof in this area, therefore nothing further is required. But if this corner has been altered, it will need to be contained within the property lines of 1014. And a building permit was issued in 2000 to construct a sunroom on an existing deck. With respect to the two outbuildings that are being questioned, one of those accessory structures may already be legal, as it is visible in a survey from 1990. However, there's insufficient information, so the variance requests therefore include both accessory structures. Should the existing location be permitted by Committee of Adjustment, the buildings could potentially be replaced in the future in the same location. With respect to the open deck, there is no required setback in the zoning bylaw from the lake for an open deck, and the watercourse noted in the application is not intended to refer to Lake Muskoka. The septic system, a permit for a new septic system was issued in 2023. Part of this process included a pre-inspection to confirm suitable conditions as the new system replaced an older system installed in 1985 in the same location and was therefore permitted by the Ontario Building Code and received the appropriate permits and inspections. And I can just add to that, I did, in speaking with the Deputy Chief Building Official, he confirmed that the permit is still open because there is a hydro connection that's required for the pump. So it's not closed, but to date, it has had the appropriate permits and inspections. With respect to the flood elevation, a portion of this elevation may extend through the proposed deck, but an open deck is permitted, whereas enclosed or habitable space is not. However, if habitable space already exists, i.e. the dwelling, it is permitted. So the answer is, therefore no exemptions have been granted as none are required. With respect to the deer wintering area question, according to mapping available to the town, there is an adjacent deer wintering area located behind, but not on, either the subject property or the neighbor's property. Deer wintering areas are associated with coniferous vegetation, and the policies direct the vegetation be left intact. There is no record, if the neighbors have additional details about mapping about a deer wintering area, then certainly that would be considered. And just the last thing is the zoning bylaw does not differentiate between seasonal and year-round use. So there is no cottage reference in the zoning bylaw, only dwelling. And that's basically the summary of what was sent.
Okay, thank you. No further questions from, did you want to just supplemental? I'll allow that.
News to me. Where is the sunroom on the property?
Go ahead, Mr. Cassidy.
Through you, Mr. Chair. In the letter that was provided, you had questioned a sunroom at the front of the property that had been a deck, and there was, so that's what is being referenced, is what you were speaking about.
So the sunroom that's now enclosed and is now a dwelling location that's within the floodplain is okay? Because I think you just said that a dwelling place within the floodplain is not allowed, but that's what's in place right now.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there was a building permit issued for that in 1990.
Right, so it's now an enclosed space with, it's not a sunroom anymore. It's habitable space. So it seems to be in contravention to what you're saying is within the flood zone. A living space within the flood zone isn't allowed, but apparently it is for this case.
Ms. Chikatis, do you want to comment on that, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Prior to 1994, the zoning bylaw in place was from 1972, and at that time there was no flood regulation for Lake Muskoka, and so there wouldn't have been the same restrictions when the building permit was issued for a sunroom in 1990. In the zoning bylaw, the differentiation between an open deck, there is a differentiation between an open deck and a sunroom. So meaning that the sunroom has established rights from 1990 to be able, it already is considered habitable, and so that isn't changing.
Okay, so it's just grandfathered. Okay. There's the comment about the watercourse setbacks for the creek. I'm not sure what the answer to that one was, because the variances that are in the application seem to ignore the variances from the creek and sometimes from the lake. It just depends on the situation. For example, the deck, it says the variance is 11.5, but that's from the creek. The deck is only 4 meters away from the lake, but that variance isn't called out. Is it because it's an open deck? And it seems like sometimes you use the variance for the creek and sometimes you use the variance for the lake. So
Mr. Caddis, I'll just, I think you did speak to the deck not requiring a setback from the lake, is that correct?
Sure, I can clarify if that's of
Go ahead.
assistance. So an open deck under the zoning bylaw does not have a setback requirement from the lake. It gets counted against shoreline development. The open deck or any structures don't have that same relief from a watercourse. That's why the variance was specified from the watercourse, but not a setback from the lake.
okay. Sounds good.
Okay,
Thank you.
I think we'll move on, thank you. And I'll ask, sorry, the staff's recommendation in this case is to defer the minor variance. And do we have a motion to that effect or some other motion? Mr. Sims? Okay, so the motion to defer at this point, do we have a seconder for that? I don't see a seconder. Okay, so member Strength will second that motion to defer, okay. And I'll ask Mr. Ager to please read that resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moved by member Sims, seconded by member Strength. Be it resolved that application number A10 2025 GR Roth be deferred to allow the applicant the opportunity to reduce the size of the proposed shoreline development to be closer to zoning bylaw compliance.
Okay, committee, we can speak to this motion. Mr. Sims, do you want to go ahead?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'm in support of the staff's recommendation after hearing the issues that have arisen today. As acknowledged by their planner, Tracy, the option does exist to do this with landscaping. And so I guess I'm willing to consider that. But it's the other factors that I think have swayed me a little bit more. The condition of the pictures, as always, are very helpful for understanding the site here. And I think that there's, given the roof overhang, the proximity of the outbuildings, I think there has to be some effort made not to allow those to be rebuilt in their site. Much like the roof wouldn't, should that be changed, would not be allowed to overhang the side yard line. I think the sheds could be moved back as well. And so I think there's 2 or 3 things here that need to be considered to be, when this is ever approved. I guess the other one that comes up, we also saw a photo of a dock under construction with a proposed boathouse, and I don't know whether that, I guess that remains, I guess, as a question to staff, whether that now is going to or would change the shoreline coverage from what we're hearing about now in any way. So that's a question, but with opinion beforehand.
I just point out then that the motion to defer only speaks about the shoreline, reducing the shoreline development, but if you had concerns about the sheds, I guess that could be another condition. But Ms. Jakatis, can you speak to the dock issue, I guess?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the boathouse would increase the shoreline development, but it's already captured in the proposed shoreline development that is being requested. So the proposed shoreline development captures the dock under construction, the proposed boathouse, and the open deck.
Is it fair to say that the boathouse, the permit was issued for the boathouse because the deck was not in place? That's what think I'm hearing, right?
The
Because
permit,
that would be in compliance without the deck there, then the shoreline development was in compliance with that boathouse being built.
yeah, that's correct. So the permit was issued, a permit has not been issued for the boathouse. The permit was issued for the dock. Those two permits get issued separately. And that permit was issued in the absence of the deck to be in compliance with the zoning bylaw. Perhaps I could also speak to the sheds, or I could come back to that if you wish. Just one of the photos that was shown, there are some restrictions on this site that may make it difficult. I haven't explored this, but to move them in terms of the water course, the 30-meter setback required from the water course, from the lake, the septic system, the driveway, and the hydro line. So those are just, there are some factors on the property which may limit the moving those buildings, but certainly the applicant may have some more information about that.
I don't know if the applicant wants to speak to those outbuildings at all. Oh, yes, please come forward then.
Thank you very much. Just to clarify, as far as the sequence of permitting, so the deck was removed. The previous deck, which was much larger, was removed prior to permit the dock construction. The only reason we have yet to have gone for the boathouse permit is because it does require site plan approval, and we wanted to include this process should the deck be permitted in that site plan approval. So of course, we're only doing it once versus getting a site plan approval and then amending within a few months. So that's a bit of that history as far as how we're getting through on permits. The sheds and the other structure, those are inherited structures. They are useful storage for the ROFs. Again, it's a very similar condition in every property on Muskoka. I would note that there was a previous planning amendment granted for the Austrians on the neighboring property, and it does show a similar shed in their side yard setback, which of course applies to today's standards. So again, they have a similar condition, so we're not sure, we could address any other objections if it was a state of the building to improve. Of course, this is part of the overall improvement of the property. As far as the roof overhang, nothing has changed. We have a building permit to improve the cottage. The roof overhang does not change. And again, it's a very typical kind of condition in Muskoka, and it has been there since the 1960s. So I don't really see that we can have an improvement as far as that goes. The deck is smaller than the previous. Again, the deferral, if we can come to an agreement today on a square footage that the committee has preferred, we could do that. Should you, of course, require us to come back, we can do that as well. But I'm hoping that we've addressed most of the concerns. Of course, should you have more questions, we're happy to answer those as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Member Strength, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So I don't have a particular problem with the deck. It seems to fall in line with the existing dwelling. My issue, I guess I would say, is the the square footage. So it's been said that in the recommendation with the deferral, which I would support, that they have to come into compliance. But how can they come into compliance? I don't understand that portion. What do they need to do? Do they need to reduce the dock? Do they need to, obviously, we've just discussed the sheds aren't coming into play here. What do they need to do to become compliant? Closer to compliant.
closer
Okay,
to
yes, and
compliant,
I
yeah.
agree that the square footage difference, permissible difference, is a pretty significant number. So I'm just trying to understand where they can go to get closer to compliance.
Ms. Jakanis, could you answer that question?
Thank you. I could suggest that the deck be reduced in size. The applicant may have other options, whether I don't know whether there's an option to reduce the boathouse, the dock. I don't know if that's an option, so they may wish to comment on that as well.
If you would comment on that, thank you.
Thank you so much. So the dock and the boathouse structure have already been engineered and designed to support. So it is a steel pile dock that is engineered for the footprint of the proposed boathouse. So the only option we have as far as a reduction is to reduce the deck slightly, which we're not opposed to doing. As I mentioned, we can do this out of landscaping, but it's not preferred because of the hardscape isn't as appropriate in the waterfront zone. As far as from an environmental perspective, you know, we can definitely reduce a couple of inches. The thing is with the cottage renovation is that the deck has to hit the doors that have been put in. So we could maybe reduce it a couple of feet off the end and maybe a little bit from the front. It's about a 12.5 foot by 32 foot deck, which encloses that in corner. We could pull it back a little bit from the edge. Again, the appreciable difference at this point would probably be about 50 square feet. If that is palatable, we're happy to do so. We can see what sort of things we can look at, shapes, getting something in. Again, if that's the difference that appeases committee, we're happy to look at that. So, okay. But unfortunately, we don't have much option to amend the dock boathouse. That is all in compliance. Of course, this is why we're here today for the deck. Okay? Happy to answer any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I respect the neighbors coming forward and worrying about their property values and what's gone on and maybe past history here, but I know the Ross, for me, what I see here is a plan to correct some things that have gone on in the past and a plan to upgrade their cottage or home, however they want to refer to it as. And they've come forward and they've put things on paper and they've gone about it the right way to apply for permits, apply for septic permits. I can't support the deferral. We're talking about 50 square feet. And I know we're here to protect our shoreline. We're here to protect the environment. We're here to protect a lot of things. But there's nothing that I can see in this application that is going to be detrimental to the environment, to the shoreline, or anything that's going on. I understand that sheds are close to the property line. That's unfortunate. And again, if we go back to 2022, and those of us who have lived here a long time saw the fiasco in the real estate market, and in 2022 was at the height, and I'm sure the Roth family would go about this a little differently when they purchased this property in time for inspections, in time for looking up blueprints and surveys and things like that. But there was no time because there's probably a number of people out there wanting to put bids in on properties that they may not have had the opportunity to purchase it. So things get rushed and things get missed. And the Roth family have stepped forward and have wanted to correct it. Obviously, we've answered a lot of the neighbors' questions in regards to building where there was a sunroom, but a sunroom is a habitable space. And so, yes, it's closed in, but a sunroom is still a habitable space. So if the Roth family decided to put this deck on the ground, as the agent has suggested, and make this deck as big as they want. It could be stone. It could be paved. It could be anything. So for my question, first of all, to Ms. Angela Dukakis would be, what would be the environmental impact and difference between a stone patio and a deck patio? And then I'll have a follow-up.
Ms. Jakadas.
So typically, the ideal, based on what we get from environmental consultants, is permeable. So we'd be looking for permeable. The bylaw doesn't regulate patios other than to say that the shoreline buffer can still only be a maximum of, the shoreline buffer must be maintained to 75%. So say stone patios and that type of thing can't occupy more than 25% of the shoreline. Is there an environmental difference? I can't say that.
Thank you, Mr. Kadas. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I would lean towards asking the committee, and knowing that we have all sat around this table for 3 years now, and there's been a lot of things that we have approved in our service to this community that have a lot higher impact on our environment, our neighbors, the neighbors of the Roth family. These folks here have stepped up, got their permits, are trying to do the right thing. For 50 square feet, we're going to hold them up the rest of the summer, and so on and so forth. I don't see the logic in it, and I'm sorry, but I can't support the deferral.
Thank you. Are there further comments from committee on that? I'll add my own comments. I think, agree with Mr. Watson that I don't see that the impact of the whatever number, I mean, the deck as proposed, I don't see the environmental impact. And, aesthetically and whatnot, it just wouldn't make sense to me to have a partial deck in that location. I think it would, quite frankly, look a lot more cohesive to have the deck, fill out the rest of that space under, with respect to the dwelling. So I would tend to agree on not moving forward with the deferral and approving the deck as shown. I think the other issues have been dealt with as well. Normalizing those sheds, I think, is I mean, they're already existing and have been for some time. So it's to me, that's almost a housekeeping thing. With no more comments, I guess we'll have to, Member Strength.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Then can we get clarification then that can happen here? I mean, I supported the deferral, I seconded the deferral motion to get it on the table. So we always hear in these meetings, nobody likes to do anything on the fly. So is that something that we can contend with here this morning?
Mr. Ager.
Mr. Chair, through you to Member Strength. So as committee is aware, We did have a mover and a seconder for the deferral motion. Committee has the ability to make a vote on that, it sounds like deny is the appetite to not move forward with that. And staff have prepared, as they usually do, alternative motions. So there is an approval as well, an option available for you. So if that's the appetite, you will need to make a decision first on that deferral. And then from there, in theory, we won't have a decision and we'll go forward and talk about other options.
Okay, so I think we can call for the vote on the deferral. Sorry, no. Okay, so that deferral then is defeated, and I would entertain another motion. Mr. Watts, a motion to approve. Motion to approve from Watson, and I'll need a seconder. Strength?
I can pull up the other resolution.
Perfect.
Thank you. We'll get that on the screen here.
Oh, sorry, so this one's, take this out first.
Yeah, they're just going to put it on the screen. They're just going to put it on the screen.
Just a moment while we get that up on the screen.
Okay.
Go
we have-
ahead, Mr. Hager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moved by member Watson, seconded by member Sims. Be it resolved that application number A10-2025 GR ROF be approved and that the necessary notice of decision be prepared, conditional upon a site plan agreement being entered into with the town.
Committee, any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, okay, we'll call for the vote on that motion. And that carries. Thank you. Sorry, I now declare this public hearing to be concluded. And I now declare this to be a public hearing for minor variance application A14-2025 GR for McNeese, Stollard, and Stollard. I will now ask the planner. I'll now ask the planner, Andrew Clark, to please provide any additional information that may be relevant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everybody. The subject property, which is municipally known as 1432 Ray Road, is in the northeastern area of the town of Gravenhurst and is on the northwestern side of Ray Lake. The property is within the waterfront area designation in the official plan and is zoned residential waterfront, RW6D. The property is currently accessed from Ray Road, which is municipally maintained and has assessed frontage on Ray Lake. The property is developed with one detached dwelling, including 2 attached decks. It's generally level in the rear and central areas, sloping downwards gently towards the shoreline. The shoreline includes a mix of shrubs, trees, and some marshy vegetation. As you can see in the aerial, though, it does generally consist of landscape grass. It also includes the septic system and the well that service the property. The surrounding lands generally consist of smaller residential waterfront lots on Ray Lake with similar development characteristics, including the lots directly to the north and south, which you can see on screen partly. And also this area includes larger rural lots to the northwest on the other side of Ray Road.
An application has been submitted to permit the construction of a one-story detached garage, which includes permitting a minimum setback of 26.2 meters from the optimal summer water level, where 30 meters is required, representing a variance of 3.8 meters, permitting a minimum setback of 4.1 meters from the rear lot line, where 6 meters is required, representing a variance of 1.9 meters, and permitting a minimum setback of 5.5 meters from the southern side lot line, where 6 meters is required, representing a variance of 0.5 meters. You may note on this sketch that a shore road allowance is shown between the water's edge and the property, or the dwelling. The applicants have confirmed that they do own this land up to the water and have confirmed this through a lawyer. And the requested zoning relief is based on the entire lot dimensions going to the water, just for context. Comments of no objection have been received from the Deputy Treasurer, the Deputy Fire Chief, and the Infrastructure Technologist. The Deputy Chief Building Official also provided no objections, but noted that the existing septic system in front of the dwelling could likely only be reconstructed on the same size and footprint due to its proximity to the water, and that the garage will need to comply with all required setbacks in the Ontario Building Code. And I'd just like to note that the proposed garage is not intended to influence the capacity of the existing septic system, which has been designed for the dwelling already. 2 letters of support have also been received, including from the abutting northern neighbor at 1434 Ray Road and the abutting southern neighbor at 1428 Ray Road. So moving into our site photos, this first picture looks east from the rear of the property towards the proposed garage footprint. You can see that the footprint is marked in orange stakes. The internal stakes represent the location of the proposed door in the foreground. You can also see the lake then in the background and the dwelling on the property on the left, as well as the neighbor on the right. This also looks east at the area between the proposed garage and the existing dwelling. You can note that there is an existing air conditioner system on the dwelling. This is to note that the applicant is requesting a reduced side yard setback, partly to allow for adequate separation to be maintained between the dwelling and garage, and also to allow for appropriate access to the front amenity area of the property still. Looking east in front of the dwelling, this just shows the location of the existing septic bed. This looks south at the neighboring property that shares the side lot line where setback relief is being requested. You can note that the existing buildings do appear quite close to the shared lot line, but that the proposed garage, again shown in the orange stakes, will be separated from these structures and buffered by some of the existing vegetation along that lot line. And this neighbor has also provided a letter of support for the garage and its location. This looks north towards the other neighboring property and the existing dwelling on that. This property owner again has provided a letter of support for the proposal. Looking east again, this is the existing shoreline area in front of the proposed garage footprint. You can note that this area consists of a mix of landscape grass, some smaller trees and shrubs, and plantings, which do help provide a visual buffer. Staff have also recommended a condition that additional plantings are included in this area to provide an enhanced visual and environmental buffer between the proposed garage and Ray Lake. Looking west, this shows the area of the proposed garage from the shoreline. The garage will be elevated from the water and consistent with the location of the and shoreline setback of the existing dwelling. And it is recommended to be further buffered in this area with new plantings. Finally, this looks west from the garage footprint towards the road. The garage will maintain a similar rear lot line setback as the existing dwelling and neighboring development. It will also remain separated from the road and the hydro line, which you can see in the background, while permitting for a new access driveway off of Ray Road as well, which the applicants have received an entrance permit for. So as outlined in the staff report, staff are satisfied the application meets the 4 required tests for a minor variance and recommend the application be approved subject to the condition that additional plantings are provided in the front of the garage through the required site plan agreement process as shown on the next screen. And that concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Do the applicants have a presentation you wish to make, or You're just available for questions? Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from members of the public attending? Seeing none. So the staff's recommendation in this case is to approve the minor variance application. Does committee have a motion to that effect? Mr. Ungerman and Member Strength. And I'll ask Mr. Ager to please read the resolution.
Moved by member Ungerman, seconded by member Strength. Be it resolved that application number A14-2025 GR McNeese, Stallard, and Stallard be approved and that the necessary notice of decision be prepared conditional upon additional vegetation is provided within the shoreline area in front of the proposed garage through the required site plan agreement.
Thank you. Committee, any questions or comments on this one? Mr. Sims?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question, or I guess it was noted about I'm curious about the shoreline allowance. Is that a lawyer in town is able to find a record that the shoreline allowance had been purchased, but the town is unaware of that? I mean, I'm just curious how the records not have kept aligned or something. And then, so maybe I'll stop, and then if I could follow up with one more minor question.
Mr. Clark, are you able to comment on that?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. So when the application was received and we noted that, there is also an existing private property survey which delineated the original shore road allowance and showed that generally when that's shown, it could indicate that those lands aren't owned by the applicant. In this case, the actual property deeds and associated instrument numbers describe the lots as moving all the way to the water's edge. These were in the 1950s, if I recall, and they include surveys which show the dimensions going to the water's edge. In terms of how that transaction was completed, given that there is generally a shore road allowance on Ray Lake, I can't speak with 100% certainty. Of course, this was quite some time ago, and I don't exactly know what the process was, but in this case, the applicant's lawyer has confirmed ownership based on that, also based on the PIN information available to the province. That PIN associated with the property goes all the way to the water as well. So we would defer to the expertise of the lawyer in this situation to confirm that those lands are under the ownership of the applicant.
Any a subsequent question or comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Andrew, for their clarification. You know, it's interesting. We've in the past dealt with situations where whether it's a lawyer or a surveyor has come, but only after the fact. And in this case, it's come before the fact and has clarified it in a very positive way. So I think that that speaks, I guess, to planning and including surveys in the process, or at least legal opinions. The next question is I think of a minor nature, and it's just based upon issues that have arisen in the past, and and it has to do with this being a garage, which I actually fully believe this is going to be a garage. But we have also encountered situations where garages have been used as dwelling units for short-term rentals. And I'm just curious whether what regulations exist in order to ensure that this doesn't just turn into another dwelling unit. I'm not suggesting that the owners propose to do that. That's the last thing in my mind. It's more just the process by which we are following. So.
Mr. Clark, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question. It's important to address, but our zoning bylaw does not permit a second dwelling unit within this zone, or an accessory dwelling unit, as you may see in urban areas, for example, where those uses are specifically permitted. So, you would need a building permit to also allow that legally, and the zoning does not allow for that. So you would need a zoning amendment application to permit that, as well as the appropriate building permits. And that's, of course, not contemplated in this application, but it wouldn't extend approvals to those types of uses. A sleeping cabin is permitted within this zone. Again, though, this relief that's being requested for applies to a one-story detached garage specifically.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Anything further, committee? Thank you, Mr. Clark. As a result of these proceedings, are there any recommendations or comments you wish to bring to our attention?
Through you, Mr. Chair, staff would recommend the application be approved with the recommended condition.
Okay, thank you. Seeing nothing further, we'll call for the vote on that resolution. Thank you, and that has been approved. I now declare this public hearing to be concluded. I now declare this to be a public hearing for minor variance application A15 2025 GR for Basili and Taylor Basili. I will now ask our senior planner, Angela Jakatis, to please provide any additional information that may be relevant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject property is located near the western boundary of the municipality on Taylor Island on Lake Muskoka. The property is designated waterfront area in the official plan and zoned residential waterfront RW6B, subject to a special provision which only applies to the dwelling. By definition, the property fronts onto a narrow waterway. So keeping in mind the property lines are a little bit off on the air photo, as they often are. So the docks shown here are actually part of the Basili property, the subject property. Committee may recall this property obtained a small lot addition to accommodate a small shed that was built incorrectly due to the, I'll say, the odd lot lines in this area. It's not relevant to this application, but just if this property looks familiar, that's why. And just staying on the air photo, you may be able to see that at the end of this bay, including parts of this property as well as the neighboring property at the bottom of the slide, there are low and wet areas. The proposal is to construct a dock addition, as shown in black, that is attached to a permanent dock and is in between a floating dock, shown more clearly in this sketch, resulting in a dock length of 9.5 meters, where a maximum length of 6 meters is permitted in a narrow waterway, representing a variance of 3.5 meters, and resulting in a cumulative dock width of 18 meters, where 12.5 meters is permitted based on the straight line frontage, representing a variance of 5.5 meters. And I would point out that that 18 meters is taken from the widest points measured at the widest angle, so using a worst-case scenario. Comments of no objection were received from the town's infrastructure technologist, deputy treasurer, and deputy fire chief, and a letter of support was provided by the neighbor located across the bay. These photos were taken last October. This first photo is taken from the bay, provides an overview of some of the property. You can see the existing docks, which did include a gazebo at that time, but it's no longer there as it was destroyed over the winter with the snow load. So then just looking a little bit closer, you can see the dwelling in the background. You can't see the other accessory structures on the property. You can see that the property is relatively level, and the dock addition will be associated with the existing dock, and it's staff's opinion that it doesn't result in an overdeveloped appearance of the shoreline, as there is a large frontage which continues along this shoreline. So this picture is taken standing on the dock, looking west. And again, this includes both the subject property as well as the neighbor's property at the far right of the photo, which is at the end of the bay. And you can see the vegetation that's located away from the dock and near the west part of the property. And it's difficult to see, but more so at the end of the bay, which is associated with identified significant fish habitat. So that's the end of the bay, seen more clearly, again, just noting that it's low and wet in this area. And I would also point out that with it being at the end of the bay, boat traffic in this area is limited. Then turning and looking directly across, this is looking at the neighbor who provided the letter of support, at the neighbor's property that provided the letter of support. And I think this photo also illustrates that the proposed dock extension will not inhibit navigation or be a concern for safety reasons. Just a couple of more photos, looking at the existing dock that's to be added to in order to achieve additional water depth, and would note that this area is already used for shoreline activity and boat docking. And then standing on that dock, looking west out the bay towards the main part of Lake Muskoka. And this last picture just shows a boathouse located along the same shoreline. So as detailed in the staff report, planning staff are satisfied the proposal meets the 4 tests of a minor variance and would recommend approval of the application. And that concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Do the applicant or agent have a presentation they wish to make? Please come forward. We'll need your name and mailing address.
Thank you. My name's Robert Basili. I'm one of the co-owners. My wife's really the executive committee. I'm just the representative. Thank you very much it's very interesting to be here and listen to the whole process. It's very enlightening. As you can tell, our property is at the end of a bay. With what has happened climate change-wise, there are a lot of weeds that have grown up at the end of the bay, and it's the idea of the application is to try to push the dock out a little bit so that we're not driving through the weeds. So I think environmentally, if anything, it's probably a positive. We're about 100 meters from any other neighbor, and it doesn't interfere with any boat traffic because you can't go anywhere at the end of the bay. So thank you very much for hearing us, and have a great day.
Thank you. If we have any questions, we'll bring you back.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from members of the public? I don't think I see anyone for this application. And committee, the staff's recommendation is to approve the minor variance application. Do we have a motion to that effect? Member Sims and Member Watson. And I'll ask Mr. Ager to please read the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moved by Member Sims, seconded by Member Watson. Be it resolved that application number A15 2025 GR Basili and Taylor Basili be approved and that the necessary notice of decision be prepared.
Thank you, committee. Are there any questions or comments to the applicants or anyone else? Seeing none, okay. And I'll ask, sorry, Mr. Caddis, are there any recommendations or comments to bring to our attention as a result of these proceedings?
Staff would recommend committee approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll call for the vote on that resolution, please. And that carries. Thank you. And I now declare this public hearing to be concluded. Moving on, I now declare this to be a public hearing for minor variance application A16 2025 GR for Budway. I will now ask the planner, Andrew Clark, to please provide any additional information that may be relevant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject property, which is municipally known as 1017 South Bay Road, is in the central area of the town of Gravenhurst, and more specifically is within the southeast corner of the Kilworthy Rural Settlement Area, just west of Cashy Lake. The property is within the Rural Settlement Area designation in the official plan and is zoned commercial, community commercial, CC 5B. Note that the property is a through lot with frontage on both South Cashy Lake Road and South Bay Road. It's accessed principally from the latter on South Bay, and both roads are municipally maintained. The property is developed with a detached dwelling, 2 accessory storage buildings, and also recreational equipment, including 2 RVs, a utility trailer, and some snowmobiles were noted at the time of staff's visit in the central kind of rear area. The property slopes upwards gently, moving west from South Bay Road. It's generally flat in its central area and then slopes downwards towards the rear. The property is generally cleared, although the rear area adjacent to South Cashy Lake Road is well vegetated, which you can see in the aerial. The surrounding lands generally consist of smaller residential properties, which are developed with detached dwellings and accessory structures, including those with the same commercial zoning to the north and the south. A commercial tourist establishment and boat storage use also exists further south at the corner of South Bay Road and South Cashy Lake Road. An application has been submitted to permit the construction of a new 2-story garage to the rear of the property and over the location of one of the existing storage sheds, which is planned to be removed. The garage footprint is shown in the blue outline in this general area. I would also note the property was subject to an approved consent application in 2022, which transferred land to the southeastern neighbors at 1015 South Bay Road, at that time, I believe, to address a structural encroachment, and that the new property lines are reflected in the hatched lines on the site plan. Just for context, those lot lines are now here and are based on the survey that was registered. The proposed garage is also intended to meet all setback requirements that apply to the commercial zoning. So relief is specifically required to permit a 2-story garage with a maximum height of 6 meters as seen on this elevation drawing, where an accessory structure is only permitted to be 1 story with a maximum height of 4.5 meters in the community commercial zone, which represents a height variance of 1.5 meters. And I suppose it is worth noting that this type of structure and the proposed height are permitted as of right on some residential properties, including the residential community zone, which is also found within the Kilworthy Rural Settlement Area, but this does not apply to commercial zoning with existing dwellings. Comments of no objection were received from the Deputy Treasurer and the Infrastructure Technologist. Chief Building Official also didn't have objections, but indicated that septic and hydro setbacks will need to be confirmed and satisfied at the building permit stage. The applicant has measured and confirmed these setbacks, which appear to meet minimum requirements in the building code, but again, would be confirmed through the building permit if this application was approved. And a letter of support was also received from the neighboring property to the southeast at 1015 South Bay Road, where that aforementioned lot addition occurred. So moving into our site photos, this first picture looks west towards the existing dwelling on the side that's accessed from South Bay Road. Moving west, this is the central area of the property. You can note an existing RV and a driveway that connects to South Cashy Lake Road. And now moving further west, this looks towards the proposed garage, which is intended to replace the larger brown shed on the left. You can also note the existing dense vegetation behind these structures where the garage is proposed. This looks south towards the front of the garage. You can see the location has been staked by the applicant to help confirm setbacks and location. The garage will be on a flat area, sufficiently separated and buffered from the residential property to the south, which includes a driveway, as you can see in the background. This looks north from the garage footprint to the other neighboring residential property, which will be well separated and accessed using the existing driveway, which connects to South Kashi Lake Road. You can also note several snowmobiles, which are intended to be stored in the proposed building. And then you can also note that there is a garage, not a two-story garage, but a garage on the neighboring property across from it. This looks east towards the neighboring property where the lot addition occurred. The proposed garage will maintain the required setback from the new lot lines as confirmed in the site plan and is indicated by the location of the stakes on the property. And it will be well vegetated or well separated and buffered, as you can see, by the existing bedrock and vegetation from this dwelling. And of course, it's worth noting that a letter of support has been received for that property owner. So as outlined in the staff report, staff are satisfied the application meets the 4 required tests of a minor variance and would recommend the application be approved. And that concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Do the applicant or agent have a presentation they wish to make? Or you're just available for questions? Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments from members of the public? I don't think there are any others left. Committee, the staff's recommendation is to approve this minor variance application. Do we have a motion to that effect? Mr. Ungerman and Mr. Watson. And I'll ask Mr. Ager to please read that resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moved by Member Ungerman, seconded by Member Watson. Be it resolved that application number A16 2025 GR Budweg be approved and that the necessary notice of decision be prepared.
Thank you, committee. Are there questions or comments on this particular application? Seeing none, I'll just confirm with the planner. The planner's recommendation is to approve. Is that correct?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct.
Thank you. So we'll call for the vote on the resolution. Thank you. And that carries. Thank you. I now declare this public hearing to be concluded. The next Committee of Adjustment meeting is Friday, August the 15th, and as there's no further business on the agenda, we have a motion to adjourn. Strength and Sims. And we'll call for the vote on adjournment. And that carries. Thank you. And I now declare this hearing to be adjourned.